When they left for Hawaii, they didn't slam doors or stage a fight. They left like people who assumed the ground beneath them would always hold. The group photo came through at 5:12 a.m. Airport lighting, forced smiles, my mother's caption, family reset. Much needed. I stared at it from the kitchen table I paid for. The house was silent in a way that felt organized. Their stockings were gone from the mantel. The suitcase closet was empty. Even the good luggage, the one I'd bought my brother last year, because his zipper kept breaking, was missing. They had planned this. On the fridge, the mortgage statement was still there, held up by a magnet shaped like a snowman. My transfer confirmation sat in my email. Paid 3 days ago. Again. For a long time, I just walked from room to room, touching things. The sectional, the television, the washer and dryer. I didn't buy them as gifts. I bought them because every time my mother said, "We're just trying to stay afloat," something in me tightened. I could fix a float. I could wire money. I could solve things. I couldn't fix being left. There was no dramatic breakdown. No sobbing on the floor. Just a slow rearranging of thoughts. They thought I would stay here. They thought I would absorb it like I always did. That I would wait for them to come back sunburned and casual, ready to resume the same quiet arrangement. Around noon, I opened the folder on my laptop labeled property. I had created it months ago after my lawyer gently suggested that contributing to a mortgage without formal clarity was emotionally generous, legally complicated, ownership percentages, payment history, signed agreements. My name was not decorative on those documents. I called the movers first. "Tomorrow morning?" the dispatcher asked. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded unfamiliar to me, level, almost bored. Then I called my attorney. He didn't sound surprised. "You're ready to formalize your withdrawal?" "Yes." The next morning, the movers arrived at 8. 2 men in navy jackets, polite and efficient. I handed them copies of receipts and the ownership agreement. I pointed to what was mine. They didn't ask questions. They wrapped the dining table carefully. They unplugged the television. They wheeled the washer out with practiced ease. Halfway through, my phone started vibrating. 3 missed calls from my mother. 2 from my brother. A text from the neighbor. "Are you moving out? Everything okay?" Another text followed, this one from my mother. "Why are there strangers at the house?" I watched the movers carry the sectional through the front door before replying. "They're not strangers," she called immediately. "What is going on?" she demanded. The ocean was loud behind her voice. I could hear wind. "I'm removing what I paid for," I said. A pause. Then a short laugh, disbelieving. "Don't be dramatic." I looked around at the half-empty living room. "You left on Christmas Eve using the mortgage money I transferred." That was already planned. "You knew we needed a break." "I didn't know I was funding it." Silence stretched between us, thinner than I expected. "You're overreacting," she said finally. "We're family," I almost said exactly. Instead I said, "The attorney is sending formal notice today. Future payments stop now." Her tone shifted, not louder, but tighter. "You can't just pull support like that." "I can," I said. And I am. When they landed back from Hawaii 4 days later, the house didn't look ruined. It looked clarified. The living room held only what they had purchased themselves. The dining space echoed. The washer and dryer were gone. So was the guest bed I'd bought when my brother moved back in, temporarily. My attorney's letter had arrived the same afternoon as their flight home. It outlined my financial withdrawal, reimbursement expectations, and a timeline for refinancing without my contribution. Precise, professional, unemotional. That was the unmistakable moment, not the movers, not the phone call. The letter on the kitchen counter with legal letterhead and my name at the top. My brother showed up at my apartment that evening. "You could have handled this differently," he said, standing in my doorway, hands shoved into his pockets. "Differently how?" "Talk to us." "I did," I said. "For 3 years." He didn't argue with that. He just looked tired. We didn't think you'd actually pull out. That was the sentence that settled it. Not anger. Not apology. Assumption. They didn't think I would change. I didn't feel powerful. I felt exposed. Like I'd stepped out of a role that had defined me, the reliable one, the financial bridge, the quiet solution. Without it, I wasn't sure who I was to them. The group chat went silent for weeks. My mother eventually left a voicemail. Softer now. We never meant to hurt you. We just thought you were doing well. You didn't need it the way we did. I listened to it twice. They weren't villains. They were people who had grown comfortable leaning. And I was the one who kept bracing. The external consequences unfolded slowly. They had to refinance. They sold some furniture. My brother picked up extra shifts. It wasn't catastrophic. It was inconvenient. For me, the shift was internal but concrete. I met with a financial planner. I redirected the monthly amount I'd been sending into an investment account. I signed a lease on a smaller place closer to work. It was quieter, cleaner. Entirely mine. Christmas decorations stayed in a single box that year. I didn't host. I didn't visit. Not out of revenge, just space. When my mother invited me over in March, her tone was careful. The house looked different, sparse in places. Adjusted. We sat at the kitchen table, their table now. I suppose we relied on you too much, she said. It wasn't a full apology, but it wasn't denial either. I let you, I replied. That was the part I owned. There was no celebration, no triumphant speech, just a steady understanding that something fundamental had shifted. They looked at me differently now. Not as a resource. As a person with boundaries. The relationship didn't collapse. It thinned, it recalibrated. There were awkward pauses. Financial topics became cautious territory. Holidays were simpler. Sometimes I still feel the ache of it. How easily they boarded that plane assuming I would stay behind and keep everything intact. But I didn't stay behind. I removed myself quietly. Legally. Completely. And in the quiet that followed, I found something unfamiliar but solid. Not dominance. Not revenge. Just self-respect that no longer required their permission.